Hello, and welcome to Seeking Heaven, the Near-Death Experience and Other Phenomena. I am your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson, a six-time near-death experiencer and also a spiritual transformative experiencer, evidential medium, and channeler. Today, we have an incredible guest that I've been talking to pre-show. She's a phenomenal person, as well as very inspirational. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker that we have today. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and join so you can get show alerts. We're going to have a lot of specials coming up each month, like the month of February is Love Leaders Lessons, which we are going to have Nancy's story about her puppy love on there and about spiritual stories about her dogs, as well as other speakers. So make sure you join that to see. We're going to be having lots of events, live chats, to be a part of that and my soul community. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker that we have today. Our speaker is a first-time author, and her book would be Caught Between Heaven and Earth, My Profound Encounters of God and the Remarkable Truth of Our Own Existence. She is also the founder and host of the let me make sure it's a long one, I'm Visiting Author Online Book Club, which you can be a part of every month on the ions.isgo.org and sign up if you're a member. I think it's 7. If you're a non-member, it is 10. And Nancy does this once a month, and she's involved. She's involved with a lot of things. So I first want to bring her on. Welcome her. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, look, do you have a copy of your book? I want to people to see your book. I hope you, oh, wait, do you happen to have one right there? There it is. And of course, The Caught Between Heaven and Earth. Beautiful, beautiful book.
Thank you. My stepdaughter did the artwork for it.
Are you serious? That's
yes,
beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow, she's talented. How old is she?
She is 23 now.
Wow, is she going to art school?
She is a graphic designer.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you've got what we were talking pre-show about. It's just it was a funny coincidence that we both have a marketing background, and I was saying that never goes away. Even if you're doing books or speaking, you carry that with you. And to me, it's been really rewarding to use it for my efforts, like the Seeking Heaven, channel, because I get to do it for myself and my own passions. And it feels very fulfilling. So you're using it on your book cover. So I wanted to, before we got into your book, and obviously we're going to talk about your book, and I want people to know about that, but I want them to get to know you also as a person. And what was interesting, actually, how I first met you, you were on an ISGO, because I think I told you I was involved with developing the ISGO, which is the INS online sharing groups, which, has... they have different platforms like the book club and different things going on. And you were one of the speakers that night. No. You were hosting. No, it was way back. You were on there. This is way before I saw you a month ago. This was a year or two. Yeah, it was just the ISGO facilitators group getting together. And I think I saw you on there because you were kind of a newbie. And you were from New Jersey. And I said, she's from New Jersey. Okay, she's East Coast. And you were telling about your spiritual experience and about, which I don't want to give too much away, but the part where the lady pushes you in the pool, I was mortified going, oh my God, who does this? Who does this? Poor woman. I was like, thought you were so cool at that point when you were telling your story. It was like, who does this to somebody? What kind of crazy neighbors do you have? So that was probably 2 years ago that I first heard you and your story. And then I saw, then the book came. And then you've come out, and now you're doing the book club, and now you're just really coming out and shining. And I love having this YouTube channel platform to be able to let people like Nancy shine. And so you can kind of get to know her as a person too. So I was very intrigued when I heard that you were agnostic. So I thought we could start with that. Like, first of all, for people that don't know what that means, what does agnostic mean to you, and where were you, kind of what was going on in your life at the time, and what did you think about the whole God thing, and then what were some key things that kind of, boom, gave you a spiritual V8 and woke you up to this amazing spiritual path you're on now?
Well, that's a great question. And I first wanted to thank you, Tamara, for having me on the show and for making me feel very comfortable in our pre-show talk. But yes, I was agnostic, and I had decided in my teens that I was agnostic before I even knew what it was called. And I've been pretty lucky in my life not to have anybody really pushing me in any particular direction. So I've had people in my life, my grandfather, for instance, my grandparents were religious. My parents weren't particularly religious. My mom a little more than my dad, but again, nobody ever really pushing me into anything. But I do recall in my early teens a time where I was thinking about God, and I'd given God some thought here and there. I went to church with my grandparents once in a while, with my mom, sometimes when I was young, and I would say all that was done by the time I was about 8 years old, and it was very sporadic up to then. But again, in my teens, thinking about God, I remember distinctly feeling like God isn't provable. You can really, there's no way that you can prove God. So, I gave it a 50-50 coin toss. God could be there, he could not be there, but we cannot know that. That was my real decision. We cannot know. And so I lived my life on the golden rule, something I picked up from church probably or somewhere. And I thought, just be good to other people because that's how I want to be treated. And I know a lot of people latch on to that for a very good reason. And that's really how I lived my life up until I was, in my late 40s when I had my experiences. And I was fine with living that way. I mean, I had a great life, of course, with a few challenges here and there, but nothing really out of the ordinary. Until, like I said, in my late 40s, there came a moment where it all changed.
Okay. Oh, a little teaser for the book there. Okay. So I don't know if you're going to go into that story that I heard about the profound thing. And I don't know if there was a build up to that. I do like the story about the pool because I was going, wow, that's crazy. So it definitely shows where people are under different spiritual paths. And I think that we also briefly talked about some people it's off-putting when there's dogma, religious dogma in the world, because it's, my opinion, probably used for control, control how you think, and isn't really not always the, the path to your own spiritual journey that you have to pick. So tell us, however you want to lead it, if there's a lead in or just bam, the story that happened, or just go for it.
Sure. I want to mention though too, because what you said is very interesting about the dogma, because people ask me, why you, and that we get that question a lot, people who have had experience, why you and not me? I think, and I've explored that for myself a little bit. And I think part of the answer is that I was not tied to a religious dogma. I was very logical thinking, more sort of science oriented, although not too much science oriented. I was in the field of anthropology, which kind of ties into archaeology. And I did some work when I was in college on Lucy, which was the so-called missing link between humans and Australopithecus afarensis.
Okay. Okay. You have to stop with this already because you won't believe this. That was one of the things that I was asked when I was studying zoology, and I was studying the different primates, and I was so good at it.
We have a lot in common.
And that's what I'm saying. That I was so good at it at profiling the different ones. I don't know why I connected to that. And following them, that I was asked by the head professor to be their assistant.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting that we share that? I did not know that about you, and you didn't know that, which was why we probably have such a love for animals.
Yeah, and then we both went into marketing.
This is crazy, and we both support, we both are, everybody. I love everybody, but we're also into supporting women on their spiritual path, because we know how difficult it's been in business to be a businesswoman. You don't get, not too many people necessarily helping you in that area, giving you tips. So it was, trial and error difficult. Yeah. I actually, I'll make a comment and we'll get back on track. I remember back in the 80s, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was like the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s. And I was taking classes on it was literally a class called the Confident Businesswoman. And I would take classes how to be a businesswoman. I mean, you have to think about it's kind of funny, but I didn't really have a role model and know how to present myself in the world. So I know that we have had to fight for everything we've gotten, and we've shared that too. So all right, so go ahead. So now you're originating dogma. Let's go back to the dogma, and you you weren't really attached to anything.
That's right. Yeah. So the closest I was ever to being attached to something was that somewhat scientific dogma. But when I look back over my life, which many people do once they have their spiritual experiences, we're able to look back and say, oh, I should have recognized that that was something. But anyway, when I look back over my life, I was always a fence sitter. So I never had a strong.
I can't believe you admitted that. I can't.
Yeah.
That cracks me up that you were an official fence sitter. You know what? You're the only one that I've heard that's ever admitted that. That's funny.
Yeah, and it's because I could always see things from different angles. I think the only thing I wasn't a fence sitter on is that, well, I guess I was being an agnostic. Maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't. So I guess that's the
Yeah, that's kind of
fence sitter.
that's kind of, yeah, I actually just looked up the definition. Pretty much so, a fence sitter.
Yeah. And so even when I was in that scientific field, I thought that uh, your body and the physicalness that is archaeology, the physical things that they study, that's not it's not mutually exclusive with spirituality. So even though I didn't think that on a conscientious level or a conscious level, when I would think about my agnosticism, that's what I would think. So in other words, when I studied that scientific area, and then I said, well, I'm agnostic, so everyone in that area believed in evolutionism, right? So there was no spirituality. Yeah. But my thinking back then was, so you can still believe in evolutionism and believe in spirituality, which to me, again, was a coin toss. You see what I mean? So yeah. I was still a fence sitter. But I think, again, that was me not being tied to any dogma, even my scientific type dogma. I wasn't really that tied to it. So that's part of the reason that I think I had my experiences, is because I was a person who could be very open to that happening.
Well, let's say that. Right. Well, let's say this. You're from New Jersey. You can see it through a bunch of BS. Okay. Let's clean it up here. Really? You're from Jersey? I have lots of friends from the New York, Jersey area.
From Ohio, but.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. But you got this marketing savvy. You're like, I'm not buying it unless there's, you just don't go along with things. You're a free thinker. Right. You think for yourself. So, I mean, I could totally get that about you.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's just who I was and who I am even today. I mean, I go about things based on my own truth and, what fits in with my own truths of what happened to me, what resonates with me and in my heart is where I go, what I tend to pick up and add to my own puzzle that I'm putting together, which is a spiritual puzzle.
Right. Well, we're all on that journey. And I just, anyone listening, give yourself permission to be where you are right now. If you're like, I don't know, then that's where you are. You where we are now is not going to be where we're going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. So you have to be okay with not knowing sometimes, or being in a state of confusion and asking questions. And then when you think you've got all the answers, and guess what? Then the next year you don't know it all. You're starting over. It's a constant evolution of our own spiritual journey. So okay. So you're agnostic, and so you're just kind of on the fence. Like, I don't really know what to think yet, which is a lot of people are actually there. They're like, I think there's something. I want to have an experience. A lot of people do, or I'd like to know somehow, but they're not really angry about it. They just don't really know.
I was even one step beyond that, Tamara, because I wasn't even a seeker. So I wasn't even, once I made that I had that thought when I was, in my early teens, I never thought about it again. I mean, and if it did pop up in my head about, geez, maybe I should be scared. Maybe God is looking down on me and I should be believing. I never had that.
Well, you were
I always just thought
right.
it's 50-50. We'll never know. So it's not even worth thinking about. So if those kind of thoughts did
Right.
pop in my mind, I quickly brushed them away and, I believe what I believe, and that's that, that there's no way to know anything.
Well, and I could see that. I had points in my as growing up that I thought, how can you really know? And there was so much confusion in the world. And then when you do see people that are claiming to be spiritual, or like look at example, like not to beat up on priests, but because there's some wonderful priests. But what about the ones that molested little kids? So you get these, as a kid, you get, especially growing up, you're like, and then you get the people at the church, and the minister's having an affair. And so you're like, these are our spiritual leaders aren't always, I mean, they're human, and I get they're broken too. I get that, but it can be the whole topic confusing. So you go, what the heck?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us what led up to this big eye opener, which I love the story.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question, because I like to tell about the big aha moment when it all started. And I call the main experiences that I talk about in my book, I call them my core experiences, because as I said, you can look back in your life after these happen and see that you actually had things that were, you could consider divine or outside of what's normal, supernatural before. And certainly I've had things continue to happen to me. But the thing that kicked it all off, this is from the first chapter in my book, I believe the first chapter, and it's called Angels at My Door. And that's exactly what happened. So I was alone one night. My husband travels quite often. My daughter was off with her friends. She was, a junior in high school at the time. And I was laying on my couch like I often did. I've had the opportunity to step out of the work world. This is important. And I'd never had that. I'd always worked since the time I was 14 years old. This was the first time where I was able to quit my job, just take on clients as a consultant when I wanted to. My husband was doing great at his job, so I was finally able to do that. Well, this particular night, I was kicked back on the couch and just reading through my iPad, looking at stories, and I happened to come across a story about a boy who had died. And that story led to a link to some videos he had made. And his name was Ben Breedlove. I think his videos are still online. You can find them.
Okay.
But he's talking in the videos about, how bad he feels that he had this heart condition and he was going to die. They'd only given him so much time to live. And I started to just have this overwhelming pain for this boy. And, he was talking about how he could never play soccer with his friends and do the things he wanted to do. And, he was a very good looking young man, about my daughter's age. And my heart just started to swell, and, tears started to come out of my eyes. And I laid my iPad down and I was on my way to the kitchen to get a drink of water. And the short walk from the couch in the living room to the kitchen, I got angry. So you know, my sadness morphed into anger. And I raised my fist, literally raised my fist, and started yelling at a God who, as you know, may or may not have been there for me. So I started yelling about suffering. And I said the word suffering over and over in this tirade at God. Like, why do people have to suffer? Why does this boy why did he have to suffer like this? And his family had to suffer. And the suffering is such bullshit. I mean, I was giving it to God
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
And in the middle of my ranting and raving, I heard, this loud knock on my front door. And nobody ever comes to my front door because my house was on a corner. Anybody that knew me knew to come around to the side. My husband wasn't home, but it sort of startled me, and I wiped the tears away that were still on my face. And I went over to the door, and normally I would have, been a little bit curious, who's out there, but for some reason I just opened the door, and there were two people standing there. One was a gentleman standing right at the door, and he was kind of portly, They were both elderly. And the gentleman had glasses and a cane. And the woman was standing 2 steps down where the sidewalk met the stairs. She was kind of portly. She had on a black shawl. But I opened the door, and the gentleman said the only thing that either of them would say to me. And he said, "We just came to tell you that suffering isn't going to last forever." The exact words, the exact phrase, never forget it. And my heart.
No introductions, nothing. You open the door. Oh my gosh, those are angels. I have angel stories too, where they've manifested as people, and it's like, you know it, and then you feel it, but it's still like, but you want to talk yourself out of it.
And I tried to, yes, definitely. But that was the only thing they said to me.
Wow.
And I stood there and I waited for them to say more. And I looked to the woman, and she was just smiling and nodding, confirming what he had said. I looked back at him, and he's doing the same thing. And there's this uncomfortable silence. And I'm waiting for them to say something, and they never do. And so I start to shut the door, and I said, "Well, good luck with your mission," not knowing their mission was me. You know,
that is awesome. Yeah.
I said, "Good luck with your mission," and I closed the door, and I walked, which was literally 7 or 8 steps back to my couch, and I sat my butt down on the couch, and it was so strange to me. I was like in this little trance, like that this was the weirdest thing. And I sat down, I'm like, wait a minute. And I pop right back up. I mean, within seconds, I pop right back up, and I go to the door, and I want to find out where they're from. You know, what church are they from? And I went to the front door, and I opened it, expecting to see, because they were old, and the gentleman had a cane. Right. And I was expecting just to see their backs with them.
Right.
Just
walking slowly. Yeah.
But there was nobody there.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked left.
I love it.
Right up the street. It was still, dusk. There was still light. We lived in a quiet neighborhood. There were no cars going by. They couldn't have gotten a car. They were just gone. And I was flabbergasted. And I sat back on the couch, and I was like, this is crazy, But I went back.
Yeah.
That wasn't the end of the surreal night, because I went back to the video of Ben Breedlove, and he made 2 videos, and he starts to begin to talk about the time he died and saw angels. And, I felt like he was speaking to me from beyond, telling me to believe. And and he holds up these cards in his video. And the last cards he holds up is, "Do you believe in God and angels?"
Oh my gosh, I got the chills. I've got the chills.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you too, Tamara, that one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and maybe trying to compile something, is there's a lot in names for me. I find hints in names as to what people may be doing in their lives, or have come here to do. And the name Breedlove really strikes me. That this young boy, Ben Breedlove, came here, and his story affected me. His sister had written a book about, love and what it meant, for her brother to die. And I've heard other people speak of him too. And he speaks of the spirit world in these videos, and how he had met people, and, had his life review and those sort of things. So it all really came together in this real supernatural first of my core experiences.
Okay. Well, first of all, I am a believer. I believe you 100%. Okay. And it's funny. It's hard to believe that, oh yeah, I guess I still am a skeptic in certain ways. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I know that feeling, and I know what it is when it's there, but I guess I am. I'm an open-minded skeptic with things. But that, there is so much love for all of us, and for you, that God wanted that to happen. I've had a couple manifestations where they've showed up, and you've seen shows. What was that? Oh gosh, there were different shows. It was like the spiritual in search of, it was another show with angels, and the people commonly would have things happen, but the fact that it was a direct response to your answer. And one other funny little thing, this is crazy. The name thing, I cannot believe, like, we knew each other, but we're busy doing our thing, and we like really had a chance to kind of really, get to know each other with this conversation. But you didn't know I have a thing with names too.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'd love to hear all about it.
But the thing is, my husband started me on that. And so when I realized if someone's name is so like Bill Courage, like, then that means Bill Encourage. And they usually in within their name, they actually are that. And and so I look at, it was funny, there was a lady told me the other day from India. She's written a book. She's an author too. You should have her own. She's from India. She's great. Sparkle of Heaven or something like this. But I met her at IANS conference, and she said, and I've gotten to know her since and try to be supportive. I was one of the ones who bought her book first, and I've got a picture of it. She's a precious lady. And she said, Tamara, your name means lotus flower in my country. I never knew that. I'm like, I thought, how cool is that? But if you look at the names and what people, and sometimes my husband and I have silly names for people, because if they act silly or like buffoonish, well, I just kind of tag onto that, or actor sometimes. But people also have soulfulness in their names. It's funny because when your name came to me, Alphen, it makes me think of the Alps and reaching high altitudes and striving anything that you can achieve.
Well, what's interesting, Tamara, and we absolutely have to get together and talk about this. I have so much to share with you. Your name, as a matter of fact, Tamara, Tamar, has a lot to do with my story. But anyway.
Are you serious? Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it's crazy. Every time I would see your name, I get this visual of these mountains of height and overcoming that, and the freshness and the clearness. And I mean, when you think of the Alps, it's pretty high up, right?
It is, yeah. And that is my husband's first generation Dutch. So I acquired the name, but we were intended, I'm sure, to be together in this life. And that's whole story's off.
Of course you are.
But Van Alphen actually means out of the woods. Now,
you're out of the woods.
Out of the woods, but that has really significant meaning because the third core experience that I had, you can read about it in my books for your listeners out there because it's very detailed, but I was told when I asked God, and I get these direct responses, but I was shown very distinctly. I asked, and I didn't believe in reincarnation. I barely believed in the angels that came to my door. I was having a hard time.
That's awesome.
But I asked who I had been and if I had ever lived before. And I was shown explicitly that I have lived as Absalom from the Old Testament. Now, Absalom, to get to the woods part, Absalom wasn't necessarily a great guy. He did some horrible things. Ultimately, he was killed in the woods of Ephraim, and he was speared there and buried in a pit in the woods of Ephraim.
Wow.
And
unreal.
So Van Alphen means out of the woods.
Yeah, there's no mistakes. And when you look at this as it goes on, I'm seeing more and more, not just with us right now, but just in life, the synchronicities that it becomes impossible at some point. The synchronicities. And there's no mistake that we're with whoever we're supposed to be with, even if it's just to learn a lesson. Absolutely. Okay, so I love that angel story. We should do something just on angel stories and what's I just love this, and I love how but think about it. You're talking about the Bible. I decided, because I kept seeing Jesus so much, to be a Christian minister, but I would say I'm more of a mystic. But definitely. But I am familiar, a little bit now. I was completely not interested in it, most of my life. But this, like there's different meaning to it. But when you look back through, these stories and so forth, and you feel like that, how can they still be living now? But I think that, look at the time that we are right now, that we need a spiritual awakening. Wouldn't they want to get hey, people have been through this before? Here you go, Nancy. A lot of pressure
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Just
and
saying.
Absalom's story is very interesting. What I will step back just a second too, because you talk about, especially in our pre-show discussion about seeing Jesus, and seeing Jesus was my second experience.
Yeah, tell us that one, and also the pool story, because I still cannot believe that experience. That's crazy, but I know people want to hear that. Oh, that's what I want to say. In the Bible, God would pick people, for example, and I just want to kind of throw that out there. Saul was Paul later, but Saul killed Christians. I mean, he was in charge of armies that killed Christians. Okay.
Yep.
So you had these apostles. Who does Jesus pick? The very guy that denies him and hates him, who's killing Christians. And they go, yeah, I want you to go get this guy in jail, get him out. You mean the guy that's killing us? He's like, yeah, yeah. But he shows himself to unbelievers sometimes, or unbelievers, because people are shocked when they go, wait a minute, aren't you the atheist, or aren't you the agnostic?
Yeah.
And then now because he does that on purpose. I think he did it with Howard Storm, who I've interviewed a couple times, who's a delight. Because he was a full-on.
Pretty.
Who is?
His name is also pretty pertinent.
The Storm. Yeah, Storm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he actually he just painted the storm. Jesus told him to paint the storm, and him pulling storm. But he was a nasty atheist. Because his interview was kind of right together with yours this month, and he was you weren't at least that, and he picked him to reveal himself. So to me, that says a lot.
Absolutely. And sometimes people, when they say, why you, and I never looked at the Bible before my experiences, and I'm not a Bible thumper by any means, but I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's something to be learned from all religions.
Sure. Well, of course.
And I love when Howard says, when he asked Jesus, what's the right religion? And Jesus says, the one that gets you closest to God, that's just profound.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot going on in heaven. I tell people that. Imagine like a big corporation, or a Bill Gates kind of corporation, but much bigger. And they have different holy people. And guess what? They're all, we're different, that had lives that are now there helping. Of course, they can help here too, but there's different holy people from all over the world, different religions. So tell us about how this the angel thing is just so good. I'm still savoring that, and imagining you open the door to expect to see these strange old people walking away, and there's nothing. So tell us about this next encounter. So apparently you're starting to have these conversations with God, not very nice maybe, but you're having them.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also say, you mentioned something that brought this thought up in my mind.
Sure.
When I was yelling at God, and I've thought about this many times, but many people have said, when you open the door just a crack to let God in, he sticks his foot in there and pushes the door open, and there you have it. It reminds me very much of what happened to the people who wrote A Course in Miracles. Helen Schumann and I forget the gentleman's name, but they were real contentious professors together. I think he was her administrator at a big college or something. They just didn't get along, and she one day decided that this just couldn't go on, and she went into him and said, look, we got to make this work. And that's when God stepped in, and he said, she softened her own heart enough that I could step in and begin to to Jesus, to begin to channel wisdom to her. So that kind of reminded me of my own story when, whether I believed God was there or not, I was yelling at him. So I was opening the door and inviting him for a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had one time, there was a newscast, and I don't watch the news, but it was maybe 16, 17 years ago. And I was watching something on TV, and it was showing, it was some international news, okay? And there was it was in the Middle East, and there was 8 women being actively raped while people stood in this crowd. And I'm going, and they were, you couldn't see it, but they were televising, and there's a disturbance, we don't know what to do, and blah, blah, blah. And I just broke down, and I went, that it was savage. And I
Yeah.
said, dear God, where are you? And I started breaking down. And I mean, I was alone, thank goodness, because it was ugly. And it was one of the ugly cries. And I broke down in tears and I said, where are you? How can you let this happen? And I'm like, and furthermore, I think, if you really want me to do something, this is kind of, no offense to marketers, but, I need to do something a little bit more important to make this life important. And if you're there, I'd really like some instruction. And I sorry, it just, and I did. I got an epiphany and I had a voice, and it wasn't a voice I heard per se like us, but yet I heard it and felt it. And it said, I am. I have always been, and it was something like, I see all, and it came to me, and then my whole body started like vibrating, and I was totally didn't expect that, and got a response. And then it was almost like remembering who I am. So, but I did too, because some things are so savage and appalling, and like, whoa, would such a precious boy have to suffer? So I can't say I've been perfect. I've had words with God. I'm not proud of it, but I have.
But I think one of the things I'm reading now is a Course of Love, which is somewhat a follow-up to A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of more modern version and kind of a continuation. And it's channeled by Jesus. And I believe that that's true, because I believe I also have one of the after effects of my awakening is that I believe the gift of discernment, because whenever I pray, is this right what I'm reading? Is it true? Shall I believe this? I always get a dream in response. Whether it's a snake biting me on an ankle, which tells me this is deceptive, don't believe it. Well, the Course of Love that I'm reading refers to the calling. And people always talk about a calling, and what is a calling? You hear about that in religious circles very much. But a calling, according to the Course in Love, channeled by Jesus, is nothing more than the call to be yourself.
Isn't that's the scariest calling, though, isn't it?
It's the scariest calling, because we all want to please everybody else. We don't want to be the different one.
I don't want to come out, because then you're going to see all my warts and all. I really don't want to do that.
But if part of your calling is, you're getting pissed off at God for something, I think God appreciates that, because that's where he put us at that moment, and he, like I said, is happy when we open the door, whether it's because we're mad or sad or whatever it may
suffering,
be,
grieving,
any of that. When we open that door just a crack, he'll step in, and you might not, be open to it, and you might not see it or realize it. But and sometimes, God might not answer at a particular moment, because you have your life plan, and sometimes there can't be interference with that. There's all kinds of things going on, we can't just say it's this or this, because it's very complex, in my opinion. But
I think so.
That's part of it.
No, absolutely. And the fact is, I think that once that door is open, it doesn't ever close. I mean, you could ignore it, but I wouldn't say it's closed. And I think that what I mean by door is the door is a two-way. Someone can, God can come in, come out. You can come in and you come out. But I think it's about us opening our own spiritual eyes. Really, God's kind of always been there, kind of doing what he does, or, he, she, the, source, the one, whatever you want to call it. So, okay. So I can't wait to hear more. It's all good. I mean, Nancy, this is all good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fantastic. Everything that you're mentioning, I really resonate with it. And by the way, I still get that when I read books. And I believe that, read books, don't have a spirit of fear. I mean, even with like certain things with mediumships, I'll go, and one night, and I could feel St. Michael was around. I literally had a light, and every time it would turn off when it was not true. It went on an hour and a half on a little flashlight thing. And it was responding. I said, is this so-and-so St. Michael? And it was like, yeah. And I was getting a response, but I usually get discernment like, yeah, spot on. Yeah. When you're talking, if it's resonating and it's true, like a high vibration, like God lives in all of us and blah, 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 and you start talking like this, I'll actually start vibrating while you're talking. And that's the angels telling me, yes, Nancy's on it.
Yay.
Yeah, I did that with the old people couple. I started going, oh God, this is true. I'm starting to feel buzzy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of, I know you asked about the second part of my experiences, which was having a visitation by Jesus, from Jesus. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so I won't go
No.
into a lot of detail. But
Oh yeah, tell me
basically,
about, that's one of my favorite topics. Are you kidding? Don't short me on the Jesus now. Come on.
all right. Well, okay, I'll tell you from the beginning then. It was just
Yeah.
a couple of weeks after I had the angel visitation, and I was going back and forth with my logical self, telling myself that it was just coincidence and come on, you know. And then on the other hand, I'd be like, but Nancy, that was just too crazy. That couldn't have been coincidence. Well, God decided to keep the conversation going. He wasn't going to let me fall into the doubt. So just a couple weeks later, I was in bed sleeping. And as I said before, I really didn't know a whole lot about Jesus other than the common stuff that you hear, you know, about him. But to my opinion, he was a man that had some great ideas and lived 2,000 years ago. You know, the spiritual aspect, again, you couldn't prove that. The only thing
Mhm.
I knew was that he lived, you know.
Right.
So imagine my surprise when I'm awakened, my consciousness was awakened as I was sleeping. I
Okay.
became aware as if someone would wake you up, only my eyes stayed closed. And I was awakened, and there, standing in the distance, a little bit to my left, was Jesus.
As you're in the
Now,
bed, he's to the left at your foot of your bed, or?
no, it was just sort of out there. It
Okay,
wasn't
got it. In your mind's
necessarily him.
eye.
In my
Okay.
mind's eye. That's a good way to
Okay.
put it.
Got it.
So he was there, but it was a figure. So I couldn't look and say, oh, that looks like the painting my grandparents had. That must be Jesus. No, it was a figure standing in the distance, but I knew, I knew immediately it was Jesus. And I sort of exclaimed, Jesus, what are you doing here? You know,
It's
you're not
funny. You
supposed
don't
to
know
be here
much
right now.
about him, but you knew who he was.
I knew immediately who he was.
See, and this is a good point because a lot of people, I saw him in two of my NDEs, and I did not, other than my grandmother mention him, I had an atheist, stepfather, my mom. We didn't go to church or anything. It wasn't like I knew a lot. Went to Bible study thing for like 2 weeks. They go, oh, you're done with that. I enjoyed it because I got to color and learn Bible stories, So, and they were
Yeah.
like, no, sorry, you're done with that. But I knew who he was immediately. Like, and I didn't know really too much about him. So you knew just intuitively, boom.
Yeah, and the feeling was the best way that I could describe it is it's like as if I saw an old friend in the grocery store that I didn't know was in town, and I saw him and I was like, "What are you doing
Oh,
here? You know, you're not supposed to be here." And that was
oh, I
kind of
love
the
it.
thought. This wasn't part of the plan. That was the feeling.
I
But
get
as,
it.
as soon as those
Mm,
thoughts kind of came into my head, like, Jesus, what are you doing here? And he moved in extremely close, where his head took up my entire field of vision. But I only saw the hair parted in the middle, wavy brown hair is what I saw.
mm-hmm,
But the face had these sort of cloudy striations over it.
mm-hmm. Okay.
But I could see, where the eyes would be dark, shadow, nose, mouth, beard. I could see all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while after this experience, I, I was kicking myself because I asked at that moment what then I thought was the most superficial question you can ask if Jesus shows up to in front of you. And I asked him at that moment, "What do you look like?" you know, Jesus shows up in front of you. You can ask him anything you want. And what do you look like? Such a superficial thing. But I am sure that I was intended, or it was sort of forced that I would ask that question because I had a very powerful answer. And it was a three-part answer. And the one I'll share with you
Okay.
today is the non-personal part. It was the more, message that would apply to everybody. But as soon as I asked that, my attention was snapped to the right because Jesus was, at first to the left, then in front of me, and then as soon as I asked that question, as you know, in the spirit world, everything happens like this.
Oh,
It's
sure.
telepathic. So my attention was snapped to the right, and I saw what was comparable to a deck of cards being rifled through with somebody's thumb, an invisible thumb though. And as these things were falling, they were pictures. They weren't cards, they were pictures of people. And every type of person that you could imagine, Black, white, Asian, female, male, rich, poor, I was able to absorb all of that. And it was being rifled through very quickly, but I could see
Wow.
those pictures. And the thought that Jesus put into my mind was, I look like everybody because I am everybody.
Beautiful.
So I immediately absorbed that answer. We are all one.
Yeah.
And that's actually part of all the answers and responses and things that happened to me are what drove me to the IONS near-death experience community, because after the third occurrence, which was being told I was Absalom and, that reincarnation is a fact of our existence, I couldn't deny anymore that strange things were happening to me. And so, of course, I got online and I wanted to know, is this happening to anybody else? And of course,
sure.
I found a plethora of things, but particularly in the near-death experience community, these folks were bringing back the same messages that, I've been given about our unity and our oneness, and that reincarnation is true and angels exist. And so I ended up doing a lot of work with IONS for that reason, and now I, know there are other communities out there and so forth, particularly ones I know you just interviewed recently, Dr. Yvonne Cayce on with her STEr community international group. And so there are more and more of those building up around the world, and it's a great thing, really.
Well, yeah, and I came on, I didn't talk about my near-death experiences for a long time because I felt they were sacred. I came out being a medium first. That was really safer. Seriously, I didn't want anyone to know about the near-death experience. They were very, very sacred. So that was the first place that I went, maybe 6-7 years ago, publicly to IONS, and then help with them in a lot of different capacities, and had a Charlotte chapter and still do and all that. But COVID, it's changed a little bit. We have to do things online.
Sure, yeah.
But I think that was, and then there's so many other groups. There's ASCII, there's Spiritual Awakenings Internationals, there are different ones. There's people, then you have authors that have like Dr. Jeffrey Long, a Near-Death Experience Foundation. There's different ones that you can be a part of. But what's great is that at least you have resources that people don't think you're crazy, and you don't have to die to have these things. You don't have to die. We are spiritual beings, and by nature, that's our birthright. I mean, that's where we're from. So I think, to me, it feels more and more, it's just, I think the greatest journey you'll ever take is the spiritual journey of self. But we are just remembering who we are, which is spirit, which is, people say, aren't you afraid when you talk to spirits? Well, I have discernment. Okay. I know different levels and hierarchies. I get all that. And I'm talking to Jesus every day. He's my teacher. I mean, hello. He's like, my point person, but we're spirit, and I love talking to really nice people, and some of them have bodies and some don't.
Right.
But that's our natural state. And this is the vessel that we have, right now, but you don't have to have that if you just, open to the possibility that, hey, I am a spiritual being. And I think it's fascinating that this information, was told to you. I've had what's really cool is when other people in life, when I taught at the Edgar Cayce Center, I went there and spoke at the IONS, that chapter in Virginia Beach. And then I taught at the psychic conference today in mediumship. And when I was done with my thing, there was a gentleman there that was helping me with the event. And he said, would you like to see the building? I said, I'd love to see the building. I studied Edgar Cayce when I was 12 years old enough. Yeah, of course. Are you kidding? And I'm constantly getting a recall. I'm going up the step, and then I heard brother, and I looked and I saw a picture of Edgar Cayce. So knew him. Go inside. Wow. Thought it would just be a library. I could feel, and I didn't expect anything in there, but I felt his presence. But what gets really weird is the guy goes up to the shelf of all these books, like wall to wall volumes. And he pulls this book off the shelf, and he works with the INS group there, and then also at the Edgar Cayce Center. So anyway, he pulled this book, this volume off the shelf. He said, read it. And I began to read it, and it was the type thing that Edgar Cayce did. And it was in a plastic sheet. But as I began to read it, I was there. I can't explain it, but I was there in the room, and I was there at the point reading it like I was by location. And
Wow.
it was the Last Supper. And
Oh,
as I'm reading it, I start getting ready to cry, which I didn't want to cry in this thing. So I'm kind of holding my tears, and I'm going like, I couldn't really understand what was happening, but I could see the room, and I could see the people. I could see my hands. And then when we were done, they were closing, and they said, oh, 5 minutes and then 3 minutes. They kicked us out, and we go down this spiral stairs. And I was I have to tell you, I was dazed because I didn't understand all that. And I looked at him and said, out of all this stuff, why did you show me that? He goes, I was Jesus' teacher. I was there. You were there too. That's what he said. And I was like, well, he was a high functioning autistic person, but brilliant. And so he's not like a normal, so but he's brilliant. And he looked at me, and I went, okay. And that's all I got out of that. And I did take a photograph of those 2 pages. So I think in this time that we're going through, which we're hitting a reset spiritual button, that we need the Nancy Van Alphens. We need the Tamara Caulder Richardsons. We need people like you watching to wake up, because we need to create a better world, one that's more filled with love. And, that doesn't mean that we all have all the answers. We're learning along the way. So you saw, let's go back to Jesus, my favorite topic, because he is totally my teacher. He told me actually a few years ago, I'm your only teacher. You follow me. I was like, cool. I'm cool with that. But so you had this experience, and then he visited you. So you really had 3 visitations total?
Well, that's in my core experiences, yes.
Okay.
And actually, the last core experience where I was shown. Now, I don't have a past life memory recall like a lot of folks do who claim to have been someone else or know it. I was shown in a very miraculous way, to my opinion, that I had been Absalom. And, that alone was, that was something I just couldn't believe. That was probably the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, that I'd been Absalom, because once I read the story of Absalom and realized who he was and that he'd been this, bad guy, somewhat, that, I couldn't understand. I was like, I argued with God about having been Absalom. I couldn't have been, I'm the kind of person, I shoot flies out of the house. Well,
Right.
I asked for confirmation on 3 separate occasions. And on each occasion, I got the confirmation. And one time I was sent overseas to Ireland to get the confirmation. I was not supposed to be in Ireland, but I had been asking for confirmation, and that's where it was waiting for me. So some very miraculous things happened. I'm sorry, Tamara, I forgot the question.
Oh, no. And one thing I wanted to say is that when we ask confirmation, the forms that could come in, it could come in through your dreams. It could come in as just sitting right here. Bam, got a V8. Here it is right here, right now. It could be that. It could be a complete stranger coming up to you, like that guy, like, what was that about? But it shook my world. I was like, that weirded me out. But it was like, what? But then it was like, it felt real and holy. And then there's like, there are angels, and then there's the supernatural, and then there's nature, and there's so many ways your signs can come.
And the 3 confirmations that I had, even though 2 of the things that I consider my core experiences that were my awakening, they happened when I was, had been asleep, but was awakened within my sleep. And some people will look at that and say, she was dreaming, No.
There's a difference. It feels
totally
different.
Secondly, the 3rd confirmation, the 3 confirmations that I got on the 3rd of my core experiences were when I was wide awake, and they could not have been coincidences. No way in the world. So that, that happened. And then things continue to happen to me to this
Oh,
day. So I constantly get,
oh yeah.
I talk to Jesus. I've heard answers from him. I get channeled
Oh,
writing. I've had instances of spontaneous mediumship, which, I never wanted to go down the road to be a medium, and I
of
don't think I'm
course.
that, but I get that. That happens to me now, and it's just the
Right.
things are just crazy amazing when
Well,
you
let's
let yourself be open.
Well, it's an amazing spiritual adventure, and the fact you're willing to allow that to happen. And I think if you came from a place of fear, that wouldn't happen. And just because something is supernaturally wonderful does not mean it's scary. It could be good stuff. I mean,
Right.
and I think that that's TV and Hollywood. They got to get the ratings, but in reality, the world I live in, that's good stuff. And
Right.
and getting onto the mediumship, a lot of people that have had near-death experience, they'll have what they call spontaneous mediumship, is because they're open up to the other side. But when you start opening that spiritual door, and if you're dealing with the higher realms, the God realm, that whatever you want to call that, the one source, whatever, when you're dealing with that, the higher level, there's elders there, there's a lot going on. Our relatives are there. There's different levels.
Yeah.
They're there. You're going to tap into that because they're there and they're a living spirit. They actually do things there. So to me, it's kind of who we are. I feel like a part of us is here, and a part of our soul self is still there. I think we're very multidimensional. You look at, I never understood as a kid. My grandmother would say, Christ could be everywhere, and I'm like, I don't get that. But in spirit form, we can be everywhere, and we can be in simultaneous places. And I know I've experienced with the communication with just high level spirit people, not Jesus, just high level. They can say one word and it means 5 things, and I'll go down. There's 5, and we'll go down each meaning it means. And the person knows. They can talk in ways that we can't talk. They're multidimensional beings. They can cross different realms and dimensions. So that's our natural state. So we should be doing a lot more than we're doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least be open to the fact of all that. So tell me, when you started coming out about, I got to get to the full story because everybody wants to know about the full story. So when you came out about, you're now interacting with Jesus. And by the way, do you have, I see one chair here, but you've got another chair that's a straight chair that's beside you on the left, isn't it?
Yes.
not the one with the like material that's beige. I don't know which screen you're on, but the beige chair. But there's one off screen. I can't see it, but I feel as though there's a chair that's off screen on the left, and it feels like more of a straight car. Well, I don't know which left and right is.
I have actually very straight, large barn doors to the left of me.
No, not that. Let's don't do the left and right because of this video thing, but not the cream chair, but there's a chair opposite side that looks like a plain, there's a sitting chair. It looks like a wood
I have
chair.
file cabinet.
Okay, there's a wooden chair, unless you're sitting in the wooden chair, it's like a wooden office chair. Okay. There's a wooden chair and there's a, that's not it. There's a wooden chair.
Are you seeing it, or are you?
I'm seeing it in my mind's eye.
Okay. Well, the wall is my dining room, and I have wooden chairs in my dining room.
Okay. So, and they feel like they're darker wood and they're straight up. And who sits at that table with you a lot is Jesus.
Wow.
So I don't know if you're in there as a family or that's where you eat, but he sits. I don't know if there's a kitchenette near there, but and I don't know if you spend a lot of time there, but he spends a lot of time with you in there.
Well, that's great. I'm gonna go in there even more often now.
I don't know why there. Maybe it'll come to you why, but it must be a place that it's where you're relaxed, and like now you're working, right? This is a work area. Yeah. But it might be a place you're more relaxed and you're like, whew, wind down for the day. I don't know why that place, but he's showing me this. It's got like a bow to it and it's dark wood, but he's with you a lot. And I always tell people, keep a Jesus journal, because I didn't think that I would, do this whole Jesus channeling business. But I'm gonna be honest, he loves talking to people, and he will talk to anybody if you want to listen, and you just need to write it down because he's not going to stop talking to you.
Yeah, that's great.
He's got your ear, and he is not, and you know what? He is like your best friend. He's so friendly and he's so unconditional love. He doesn't judge like people think. He's nothing like what people peg him to be. And he smiles and he laughs a lot with me, and he's very funny. And he doesn't judge even the most horrible person, and he's just not what he's represented to be. What do you think about that? What is the essence you've gotten from him in your interpersonal relations of talking to him?
Well, first of all, I'm still on a journey to know Jesus, because when my experiences first happened, and I was told by Jesus in that visitation that I was told that he is everyone, but and I didn't tell you the whole story, but he also said to me, not in words, but telepathically, that he is also the Father. So Jesus, the Father, and humanity, we're all one. And I depicted that at an IONS conference in a very simplistic Venn diagram, showing these three balls and then we all overlap. So
right.
I never, I didn't know how to pray. Like, who do I pray to exactly? Do I pray to God or do I pray to Jesus? And, knowing that God and Jesus are one, it's like, okay, is Jesus truly God incarnate? So that's the question that, is part of my spiritual journey. And I believe that that's true in the fact that it's true for all of us as well, and I'm still trying to figure out a little bit the distinction. But in my experiences, whenever I asked something, I always asked God. And that's who I was yelling at when my experiences started. I asked God. So was that, and then Jesus shows up,
I need a t-shirt, Nancy. I say this all the time, the people that know me really well, and so, and then Jesus showed up. But I mean, like profound stuff with people. I need a t-shirt, and you got to have one too. And then Jesus showed up.
Yeah. He did. So here I was, I was yelling at God, and, the second occurrence, Jesus showed up. And then the third occurrence, I asked God about the reincarnation, had I lived, and then I was given an answer. But that third answer, I don't know who gave me that answer. I prayed to God about it. So was it, Jesus teaching me this, or, on behalf of God, or, I'm still kind of somewhat trying to figure that out. I know we're all connected and then we're all one. But, I mean, it's kind of akin to saying, am I talking to you, Tamara, or am I talking to my husband? There's we're still our individual selves, even though we are one.
Well, it's just a big complex. I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. I mean, like when I talk to you, I see a spark of God in your eyes. See, I see this, but I also feel there's a certain kind of tenderness and grace and humility of people that know Christ. And I'm not talking the dogma and the church people. Nothing against church people. Okay. I don't want anybody on my case. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about regular people. Okay. And there's a certain, and many times they won't even use the word Christian or anything. They really don't, but you can tell there's a sweetness that's with them. And I can usually tell who is in like Camp Jesus because of that, because there's a essence of a personality that he has. And there's also, I have to say, a questioning, it's also a questioning thing that comes with it too. Like, to me, I'm a big proponent of having discernment, kind of like you, because it's part of your spiritual learning differences. So it's okay to ask, who's God? Who are you? Well, one of the things that I find interesting is there are stories in the Bible where you see Jesus kneeling on the rock, and there's actually a famous picture of Jesus kneeling on the rock, and there's an angel behind him. And what he's doing is he's submitting himself before, he says, the Father, before God. He's submitting himself, and that he himself is surrendering. But I think that because he achieved such a higher state of humility and love, that that he would sit here and they said it's finished, a particular purpose. And he's saying, you can be like me, greater than me, do greater things. Right. That this invitation is also, you're not exempt from this. However, I think the status of the Christ is kind of its own thing. And I too wanted to. I made a joke with him for a long time, and I think it's just a human thing. And we just have to look. We're human. We're going to say dumb things. We're going to ask, "Hey, Jesus, show me what you look like." There was a priest, and he would take photographs, and Jesus would always show up in the photographs. Well, I wasn't jealous. But I did make a joke in my mind for 3 years, and I said, well, gosh, you showed them. When am I going to get my picture? He goes, why do you need a picture? I'm like, I don't know. But I felt like a little kid on Christmas Day. I'm like I'm a massive pain in the ass. Like, yeah, I'm not like, why? I'm like, Jesus, me? Really? I was like in the disco booth, but at the clubs. You want me? Really? Okay, you go. They waited a long time too. That was quite a transformation. But I think I felt like a kid on Christmas Day that all the siblings got gifts, but my gift was left out. And I was kidding, but I did want a picture. And I think it's this, is that I spent time with him. I know what he looks like. And I want to see it's like when you see a face of someone, like you were saying, a friend you run into, you hadn't seen in a while, you get so excited and you're like, wait a minute, I know you. And I think it's that familiarity, is that human part of us that want us to connect. But honestly, we're not our face. We've had lots of faces.
Had many faces, that's right.
Many colors.
Back to earth after, after the crucifixion, and he appears to his disciples. They don't know him. So to me, that says he didn't appear as himself, and then coming back to my experience where he looks like everyone because he is everyone, he's within us. That's the Christ.
And he can. I mean, let's think about angels. Angels can manifest, just to kind of cover this. Angels can manifest. They usually like to manifest. I mean, old people, sure, sounds great. Loving grandparent types. That's terrific. But there has been many stories where they've manifested as ambulance workers, police, things safe, or nuns. They've manifested in this way, and they go, no, or there's no hospital worker here like that. Sorry, they actually, quite a few of the end of years have had stories like this. Absolutely. But if they can do that, Jesus could manifest anywhere. Honestly, I've seen people on the corner that are a bum, and I wonder, is that him?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, but he did. I didn't know it was possible. I think anything is possible. I feel like that the dimension that we live in now is kind of like lab class, when we're unfortunately at a lower level, but we agreed to it, so we got to suck it up. But right. I think that the realm that I identify with and the Jesus level is like old school, like the miracles way back. I still think all that's possible. He said we can do more. I'm going with what he said. So let's tell us.
I was just going to say, the fact that you have the abilities to connect with spirit and discernment, and I call them the gifts, they're really not necessarily gifts, but they are true nature. And I guess they're gifts, it's, however you want to call it. But yes, absolutely. And we all have it. We all have it. That's what I think this great spiritual evolution is, coming into ourselves, or we're all starting to heed the call to be ourselves. So we're coming into those gifts. And to tell you this is an outlier to my core experiences. And this is the one, I told you I was a fence sitter. By the time I'd been through my 3 main experiences and the 3 confirmations to the last one, I was a 99.9% believer. Yay.
That's good. That's more than most. Hey.
Yeah, there's that last little bit, of doubt that would creep in. And I think that God or Jesus, whoever it was that was, working with me, kind of got tired of it, because the very last thing to me happened a couple years later, when my husband and I had already moved to New Jersey. And I'm going to leave it as a little bit of a teaser for people to read the book.
Okay.
I'd love for you to read the book, and not because, as we talked about, We don't make money on our books, us authors who write about our spiritual
It's
experiences.
a lot. It's a lot of work, but most people don't. And if they don't know that,
we mostly lose money on our books, let me
yeah,
tell you.
it's
But I
true.
want people to read it so they can get the details. And I think it really, it's the whole reason I tell of my experiences, so people can really go through. And that's what I really tried to do in my book, is really take them through my account of exactly how these things happened to me and my
Right.
struggle to believe.
Right.
But the last thing, the outlier, a couple years later, is I asked God a question, which I do all through the book. I ask these questions once the door is open. And this very last time I received, while I was wide awake, an audible answer.
Oh, awesome.
Right behind my left ear, I received this answer, and it was totally not the answer I expected to hear, because I had been reading about something the night before, and I thought, oh, I get it, and then I asked and expected, yeah, this will probably be the answer. No, it wasn't the answer that I was expecting.
Wow.
So I'll leave it at that, and then hopefully that's enough to get people to go in and read with me, because I really want to take you through the details.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we won't go into the pool thing. That'll be a teaser. But I will say that people did get jealous, and the thing is, there's plenty of Jesus love. That's some good stuff. I mean, it's supernatural. I mean, it's free. It's for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
He didn't care about religion. He really is not into that. And quite honestly, I am not convinced he just stayed in Jerusalem. Okay, I think he did a lot of traveling. He was all over the place. So, that is something that is available to everybody. And like I said, for his channeling, some people may not understand that. To me, it's like this, and kind of how I, recommend people to do it. It's being in a safe place, quiet place, a place, maybe it's your little sacred, shrine, your little, I don't know, whatever it is, your living room, maybe it's outside someplace. And I have a notebook. And I just get into a state of appreciation and gratitude and surrender. And most of the time I just do that to get the God buzz. But sometimes I need answers, and I'll sit there and I just sit there and I feel this peace and I just go. Now, at the time I start writing, I think it sounds like me, right? But then I go back and read it and I'm like, who wrote this? I'm like, I don't even remember any of this. I know you know what I'm talking about, but it's available to everybody.
Absolutely. The thing for me with the channeled writing, which I do get on occasion, as a writer myself, most people know that writing is difficult, but for me as a writer, I cannot write anything without getting past a really good, perfect first sentence, because for me it sets the tone of what I'm going to write. The theme, everything for me is in that first sentence. So it takes me forever to get a first sentence. But when something is channeled through me, it flows like water. There is no waiting for a first sentence. And I always hear,
that's a great example.
Pad and pen, and I get it, and here it comes, and it just flows, and it's so nicely written. And I've had poems and prose both.
That's a great way of explaining it, because with my marketing background, being a writer, my book is basically done. I just I'm a little chicken about putting some of the stuff out there.
We'll have to get the book club.
That's true. So you can interview me and we can talk more about this. But so being a writer, and I've always been a slogan writer, copywriter. I do a lot of writing with this, and promotions, and just write, and I'm fine with that. However, this is something different. This is something that I notice that when I get messages from Christ, it doesn't sound like me. It's very sweet and verbose at the same time, but yet simple. And it just doesn't sound like me at all. And it's a flow to it. It just comes out like, woo, look at it come out. There's no thought process in it. It's just out. And I think that whether you want to think of Christ or God or the angels or your guides, they're all, I call it Team God. They're all over there. Yeah. Long as your intention is to connect with that loving God, that force, you're going to get you're going to get some messages. I mean, I'm just telling you, no one's going to be turned down on this. I think our biggest problem is ourselves, and turning off our brain and quit being so analytical and just
trusting yourself that's,
yeah.
Your answers come, if you let them, they come from a higher source. They truly do. I don't believe anything that has been, created on this earth, it hasn't come from above.
Okay, so we're going to play this game after the interview. We could do it, in the next, I always say 3 days. 3 days is a good number for me. That was the day I was 3 days in a coma with Jesus. And 3 days, 3 days, he came back, he rose, people saw him all over the place. Mm-hmm. And apparently still showing up. So, he showed up to me going, it was so funny. He showed up to me 3 years ago, which to my surprise, I was shocked, this whole story, but in the flesh, I was going to bright daylight to a Hall & Oates concert. And later on, I laughed because he was dressed kind of nice. I'm thinking maybe he's going to the concert with us. He likes music. I don't know. But really, this is available to all of us, and that we're on a spiritual journey. And I just feel like the timing is so perfect for so many people just to love themselves, honor their life that they have now, that really, the other side, Team God, totally wants to help us here. It's not easy being here. And here's the quest for you. Here's the quest for you. In the next 3 days, I'll get back to saying, if you, with your permission, we can do this. It's fun. We can go in the astral plane. I do this with people all the time, but I get to get their permission. And we'll go hang out with Jesus. And then we'll come back.
I would love that.
And then we'll come back and compare a message. Oh yeah, he loves to tell the same people the same stuff. I mean, that sounds awful. That sounds disrespectful, but he does. He's got a message. I mean, he likes, which is kind of confirmations, like kind of the same one. But yeah, because you're kind of doing that anyway. A lot of people do that. If you're cognizant of being in that astral plane, that would be a fun little thing to do. Sure. And yeah, so it's I do a lot of healing work when I sleep, because some people are not receptive to that. So I'll show up and kind of like say something nice, and we can do that. We can still keep continuing to heal and be of service, and not only in our physical form here, but really anytime. So Nancy, I already told you pre-show, Jesus knew what he was doing. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Look, I don't say that. Everybody's important, but you have agreed. He's got you on a mission. It's all good. You're going to bring so much love and support and empowerment to so many people. And these stories are going to continue to happen with you. It's going to continue.
I know that part of my journey in looking at Absalom's life and the lessons he was here to learn, I know that I'm here to serve. That's for sure. So I'm glad that you have sort of looked into that, peeked into the future a little bit, and what was already resonating in my heart. A couple of things that we talked about, you pinpointed that, and you were spot on. So,
well, I'm happy for you.
I'm ready.
Well, here's the thing. We just need to say that I'm ready. I surrender. Hey, hey, I'm open. And sometimes it comes from the least likely things. And I also use my discernment. There are times that, I've even had speakers and people go, I don't know about them. And I'm like, check in with Jesus. And he's like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, okay, then. And hopefully this channel gives people an opportunity for their soul to shine, and for them to be able to just be themselves, express themselves, because there's more to come from Nancy. There's more books. There's more things. There's the conversation with this whole spiritual world you've opened up is giving others hope that this very same thing. This is not, sorry, it's not just meant for you. Look, I like this too. I like to think he's my personal best friend, but I know I want to have a t-shirt that said Jesus loves me best, but I thought I'd piss off like a whole bunch of people. Or I have another one like celebrity for Jesus and put a bunch of glitter on it, but I thought that might seem kind of hypocritical, or kind of, piss off some more people.
You might get fished in a pool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, exactly. Or worse, so, but yeah, this is available. This realm of love is available because it is difficult here. And we're not here that long, and we're tied into the other side. And I feel like the veil is thinner. It's thinning. Some people can feel it. And look at our own lives when there's a time of crisis, like pissed off, you're pissed off at God, or someone has a tremendous deep loss, or someone dies that they a family member, or something horrible, medical thing. That's usually the time, or maybe it's a spiritual, emotional crisis, whatever it is. That's the time that seems like the worst time, but that's the best time to connecting and really getting these spiritual experiences. And look at us as a world. Are we not there?
Absolutely. And I leave my readers with, at the very end of the book, I leave them with the 4 habits of love that I sort of sussed out from my experiences. And they're very simple habits to live by. And the O is optimize. It stands for optimize your suffering, because suffering, as my angels told me, isn't going to last forever. Suffering is here for a purpose. We suffer for a purpose, and
To
it's
learn.
to learn. So just to jump back to the L out of the LOVE is look for God in everyone. So even people that you don't like or rub you the wrong way, they have God in them, as Jesus told me. Again, this is all from my
They'd have
experience.
to.
Jesus is within everyone. He looks like everyone because he is everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then the O, optimize suffering. The V is value your gifts of the Spirit. Don't be afraid of them. So many religions tell you that's evil. You shouldn't do that. You can't talk to spirits. No, we're coming into our true self. So value those gifts and practice them and hone them, And then the E is engage God on the various different levels that God is. God is, coming back to the L, each other, but God is also the source, and God sends his angels, and God has his spirit team for you. So there are many different ways and levels to engage God, but those are such, simple things to incorporate into your life if you just allow that to
I tell you what, we should have done just a whole thing on LOVE with you, Nancy, because okay, let's don't blow that off. That last chunk, this is good stuff. I totally resonate with it. And you're coming from a higher place of non-judgment, but allowing people to be, and part of allowing people to be, including ourselves, is allowing other people and ourselves to grow and fall down and make mistakes and get back up and just be a part of the journey. I just can't wait to see all the things that you're going to do. And I want to encourage people to also get your book, Caught Between Heaven and Earth. She's got so many more stories and so much more to come from her. Look, because you know what? They told me over there. Lots coming from Nancy. So I'm giving you a tip. If you were a stock and you were being traded, your value would just go up, because when I get
sure I have plenty of coffee on hand, I think.
Well, no pressure there. I've just been told lots of, there's some big stuff going on with you. So, that's good. Hey, you decided to join the team and be a part of Team God. How can you fail at that, right? I mean,
that's exactly right.
So look, thank you so much for your time and for what you're doing, and also be a part of Nancy's book club. And that would be, if you want to, that would be isgo.org, and you can find out more about her monthly book club and to be a part of that. And then hopefully maybe I'll get this darn thing out, Love from Heaven, my book, and then we can talk about that one day too. But and the book club. So thank you again so much for being of service and for your time today. You are incredible joy.
Well, thank you so much, Tamara. And I have to say, this was a really fun interview. I love, the questions that you have, and you made me so comfortable, and that's really a talent as well. So thank you for all you do, for giving us a platform to speak as well.
Oh, thank you. I felt that. I received that. Thank you. And my love back to you. I am very happy and supportive of everything that you're doing. I think you're terrific. And you're welcome back on the Seeking Heaven channel anytime. And look, I have a feeling you're going to be back a lot, because you're going to be doing a lot of stuff. So thank you again so much, Nancy.
All right. And I want to talk to you about the name stuff, because I think we have a lot to share.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? All right. Take care.
All right. Good night, Tamara. Lots of love.
Lots of love to you. Take care.